Welcome back to the things we know. Today, we're talking about love and intimacy, connection, authenticity, and what it means to stay connected to yourself in a world that seems determined to pull your attention everywhere else. Most of us are living with a tremendous amount of noise. We are busy, we are responsible, we are consuming information all day long, and we're caring for families, building careers, navigating challenges, and trying to stay afloat in a world that often feels overwhelming. Sound familiar? And somewhere in all that noise, many of us find ourselves longing for deeper connection to ourselves, connection to the people we love, and connection to something larger than ourselves. That's what drew us to today's conversation.
Our guest today is Joanna Shakti, founder of Ecstatic Intimacy, and someone who has devoted her life's work to helping people experience deeper love, connection, authenticity, intimacy, and joy. Joanna's work brings together some fascinating threads: leadership and spirituality, engineering and intuition, the conscious feminine and the conscious masculine, self love, romantic love, and divine love. And what intrigued us is that while some of the language may sound spiritual, the questions underneath are deeply human. How do we stay connected to ourselves? How do we experience deeper intimacy? And how do we love more fully? How do we create meaningful connection in a world that often leaves us feeling disconnected?
Mm.
We actually got to interview Joanna when we did Potapalooza in March of this year, and we loved her so much, so we decided to bring her back. So, Joanna, welcome back to the things we know.
Thank you. It is so good. It was such a pleasure in March, and to know we have more space to really open up with this conversation just feels yummy. So
Yay.
I'm glad to
I think
be
so too.
Yay. I agree. I agree. Let's dig in. So, you have a background that includes engineering, leadership, spirituality, intimacy work, and personal development. So, tell us a little bit about how all those roads eventually led you to
here.
this.
Yeah, in a crazy way, as far back as I was probably, well, the truth is I was probably born this way. I think it was my soul coming in, and I was born with a heart defect. So I'm like, okay,
Wow.
born brokenhearted on some
Oh,
level, and then living into this journey of love, which I could never have mentally told you that was the path that I was on. But where it maybe starts to reveal itself is growing up in the heart of the women's movement in the 70s,
mm,
being one of the first divorced families in the neighborhood, and my interpretation of relationships and
mm,
what a woman was supposed to be, what a man was supposed to be, where they were good at it, where they weren't good at it, and then in the process also watching the relationship that I developed with myself
mm,
and watching family dynamics. I interpreted it that I was the problem. And
mm.
so the perfectionist came out, the self-judgment and eventually the self-hatred showed up. And that journey then led me to, I'm never going to depend on a man. I want to have all my own money. I want to have all of this. But oh, by the way, I really want to be loved by a man. And met 6'3", blonde-haired, blue-eyed concert pianist, valedictorian, you name it, Prince Charming. Got married when I probably shouldn't have. Found myself divorced 4 years later and on a journey of what's wrong with the men. It was never the
Mm,
men. It was, and not that we don't all have things we can evolve on, but my journey to that place of trying to prove, which led me to the electrical engineering and the MBA and climbing that corporate ladder because I thought that's what would make me valuable. I thought that's what would make me safe,
mm,
respected, secure, all of those things. But the entire process was, on some level, a self denial of who I really was and how scared I was, how
Mm.
insecure I was. And I just wanted to prove that wasn't true, but it really was. And it wasn't until I turned that lens back on me and started to see masculine feminine dynamics, started to see the truth of love, started to see the truth of how we relate to ourselves and each other, and the longing for love. So all of those pieces brought me back, or brought me home really, to the soul's journey and the relationship with me
Mm.
that matters so much. in everything.
You could not have said that more gorgeously if you tried. And it's so interesting because I've never heard it put that way. And yet, when you pull apart each little piece of that, each little sort of experience or turning point, I mean, it's got to land with so many of our listeners.
Yeah.
Each bit and piece, right? Like the divorce piece, the divorce of your family piece, all those little in our listeners, somebody has experienced any one of those, and yet here you have it all, and you've turned it back in. That's so fascinating. What a beautiful
Mm,
transition into your life's purpose.
agree.
It really was, and it chose me. I didn't
Mhm.
choose this path, and that's the
Sure.
interesting part is I woke up and went, "Oh, masculine and feminine, that explains why I'm divorced, why I'm successful, why I can't have an orgasm, why I long for men but push them away, why I'm smart this way but challenge this." It just was like the whole thing made sense. And I literally knew the day that I learned about the masculine and feminine dynamic, that I would leave corporate and that it was my work first to figure it out for me and then
Wow.
to serve so that other women didn't have to go through that pain and other men didn't have to go through the pain that I put men through.
Mm,
And 25 years later, the language I would use is that everyone on the gender spectrum, all of humanity, to get to be who they are and to be loved well.
mm.
Mm,
Can you say a little bit more? I mean, even I think I understand masculine and feminine. I talk about that a lot with my clients. And yet you're so eloquent in the way you say it. I feel like I'm missing some pieces. So could you maybe explain a little bit more about masculine versus feminine?
Absolutely. And really, like I'll say something that, I watch show up in our rooms and in some of the conversations that we have of like this idea that masculine and feminine is gender.
Mm-hmm.
So that's first and foremost. They are not, they are often correlated with gender, but not always. They are really an essence energy
Mm,
that lives within all of us, and it's reflected in relational dynamics, and it's actually reflected universally. And if we go back, it's described and named in many of the ancient traditions. But the most obvious one is the I Ching, the Book of Changes, and the Taoist tradition, the traditional Chinese medicine traditions that bring in the yin and the yang, and have a
mm,
beautiful symbol of the relationship between yin feminine energy, yang masculine energy, and the unified relationship between them. So
mm,
I want to put that as the framework so that no one hears I'm supposed to be something because I have a certain body type.
mm.
mm,
So,
Yeah.
oh, sorry, go
No,
ahead.
you
Go
go.
ahead.
Well, I was just going to say the important thing, and I'll describe them because I still haven't answered Lisa's question, but I
Yeah.
want to set this framework first. But the important thing is, as we listen to this, is to listen for what's true in me.
mm,
What's the true relationship between those energies within me and the expression of them? Because that's part of our wholeness. That's part of our authenticity. That's part of our attractiveness, professionally and romantically and everywhere in between.
mm-hmm.
So I'm curious, like when you're speaking and working with people, what do people most often misunderstand about what you're doing? Like when you're using these terms in those
Yeah. And
phrases.
so the biggest resistance is that um, they are equivalent to gender, and that they take us back to the 1950s role-based beaver cleaver kind of expectation. So
Mm,
that we want to clear off the table. It's a framework. This masculine, feminine, yin, yang is a framework that allows us to see the dynamics within ourselves and between us. And so if we go back to that, those are the things that people take the most resistance to, take the most objection to. But if we can take expectation off the table and say, let's just explore these energies and what they might mean and how they might be embodied or resisted in our bodies. So as that engineer climbing the corporate ladder, I was proud of outmanning the men. And I was using and I love saying, and another part of me is embarrassed, but like my last boss called me a bully.
Mm,
And I was like, what? I can't see that. But it was the performative aspect that I
Mm.
was trying to prove that I deserved respect rather than knowing that I got this.
mm,
Which is the feminine piece.
Which is there's a feminine, that's actually the knowing that I've got this is a blend of the masculine and the feminine.
Okay.
There's a
Okay.
relaxed, so there's a center that's really clear and grounded and rooted. That's actually more of our masculine energy. And there's also an expansiveness that can rest in that.
Mm.
That's more of our feminine energy.
Okay.
So to use that as a jumping off point to come back to your question a few minutes ago, Lisa, is that the yang energy is the directed energy. It is the focused energy. It is the results oriented energy. It is the active and productive energy. It's the vertical grounded energy. It's competitive energy.
Mm-hmm.
It's decisive and disciplined energy. Sound like our corporate environments in our world?
Yep.
Very
yep.
much so. And the feminine energy, in contrast, is the expressive, the creative, the surrendered, the flowing, the collaborative energy. It's the vulnerable energy. It is the wild energy that becomes the
Mm,
creative energy. It is the whirlwind that some of us get so scared of because the feminine is the mystery.
mm,
She's the boundless energy. The masculine is the container. The feminine is what fills that container and is infinitely boundless. But we think of, so in the yin yang symbol, the feminine is the black side of that symbol,
Okay.
represents the mystery, the unknown.
hmm,
And so the feminine can be a little out of control at times, and that's part of her power.
Yeah.
And we can't do that without some level of self presence and groundedness in it. That's so the yin and the yang. So now go back to the symbol.
Yeah.
The yang white side has a fully enclosed circle of yin.
Mm.
The
mm,
yin black side has a fully enclosed circle of yang.
Yeah.
The feminine can't be her fullest without a center support of the masculine. The masculine can't be its conscious full expression without the center support of the feminine.
Mm. I love that. It's so
yeah.
interesting. I was saying to you earlier, Kari and I just did Potapalooza yesterday, but as guests. And my talk was about the feminine leadership. And so much of what you just said and specifically described about the feminine energy, the collaborativeness, the intuition, the visionary, is exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah.
So I love this. I feel like it's a continuation of what I was talking about all day yesterday.
I'm fascinated listening to this too because there is rightfully so much conversation, wake up energy around like how the patriarchy really hurts men and women, especially in the workplace, but like
Yeah.
in relationships everywhere.
Yes.
And you're such an evolved part of that conversation, right? Like you are beyond the anger or the blame and the unfairness into like
Mm.
everyone has access to this. And I love that. And I'm wondering like how you meet people that are just in that like stacked against us or like like who are rightfully also angry or who
Yeah.
have been unfairly like unfairly either targeted or mislabeled like a bully or something.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have to hold the anger. We have to hold the hurt. We have to hold the frustration. We have to give it voice and give it space to be able to move. And it's interesting, it doesn't come into our spaces that often. Like it does show up, but because we're holding such intentionality and sacredness around it, that we can hold the frustrations and the hurt and the misunderstandings in a way that allows us to hold the biggest framework of it. So, like, one of the things that I've been talking about a lot recently is that if we really look at the pains in our world, the unconsciousness that shows up, we want to judge it as the patriarchy and the unconscious masculine, the toxic masculine. I don't like that word because it takes masculinity and has it appear as if it is bad.
Mm.
It's not. There's
Yeah.
an aspect of masculinity that is unconscious and shadow and unhealthy and unsupportive. But there is also a completely essential, sacred, potent, necessary, enlightened aspect of that masculine. And there's a spectrum in between. Same thing is actually true of the feminine.
Sure.
We have our shadow feminine aspects. Anxious attachment style is a shadow
Mm.
aspect of the feminine because it's afraid of the independence. The
Mm.
feminine is about the we, the masculine is about the me.
Mm.
So the avoidant attachment is afraid of getting lost in the we. So I'm going to pull back in the me, while the anxious attachment is an over association with the we and afraid of the independence. But we need both.
Mm.
You can't have unity without sovereignty.
Mm.
You have enmeshment if there are not two distinct beings. So when you ask that question, Kari, like what's so important is that we create a space to let ourselves feel what we feel, and then to hold the shadow sides of both energies, to hold the light
Mm-hmm.
sides of both energies. And the crux of this, and then I'll pause and let you guys ask another question, is the resistance to the judgment of the shaming of the feminine
Mm.
in all of us. And the feminine is shamed in men. They're not all predominantly masculine, but the feminine, if we want to shame a man, if a man wants to shame another man, they will use some
Yeah.
derogatory term that is associated with femininity.
Yep.
Yep.
And then we have all of the ways that, as so many women have been so afraid to show those aspects of femininity, we are judged for it as women. And again, not all men are masculine, not all women are feminine. That's another piece of the conversation that leads us to our authenticity. But if we could heal this relationship with vulnerability, with softness, with having needs, with our relationship to connection and our relationship to love,
Right.
we would change the world.
Mm.
Sure.
Naps. Or as the kids these days say, period.
Really? I haven't heard that.
Another conversation. Oh, I love this so much. So at the end of someone working with you,
Mhm.
what does that look like integrated?
Okay, so I'll give you the high level summary of the three phases that people go through in this journey. And the we'll start with the end in mind. The
Okay.
end in mind, what I'm holding for people is that they have life and love making
Hmm.
that take their breath away time and time and time again. That life is so good that we go, I had no idea it could be this way. And I refer to that as ecstatic ecstasy.
Okay.
But if we want to get to that kind of life, then we have to take a step back. We'll go backwards in this journey. We have to take a step back and look at how we relate to things. And the way that we relate to life, the way that we relate in all of our human relationships. And the best kind of sandbox for a lot of people is our romantic relationships. They are a great teacher. So we spend a lot of time using romantic relationships to see the lens of, or use that as a lens onto how we relate. And so the second phase is called ecstatic intimacy.
Hmm.
And it's the relational dynamics. It is the heart to heart, the soul to soul. in some cases, the body to body relating. But if we're in soulful connections with people, and we can have romantic soulmates, but we can also have business soulmates, we can have soul families. Our soul connections are here to help us evolve our souls, which means they're not going to be rainbows and fairy tales in every moment. They're going to push our buttons. They're going to stretch us. We're going to go, no, sometimes hell no. But there's a calling here that says, well, wait a second. If I'm resisting, if I'm pushing back, what's the fear that's here?
Mm.
What do I need to look at in me? So we talk about in that second ecstatic intimacy phase is that we can handle conflicts and challenges in a way that become connection and communion. They strengthen and deepen the relationship that we're having that challenge in, and that we are fuller and stronger for it.
Mm.
But to have that kind of relational dynamic, we have to go back one more step to who's in the relationship.
Mm.
And it's the self. So this first phase is ecstatic authenticity. Who am I? What's my relationship with me? The strength of the relationship with ourselves determines or limits the strength of the relationship we can have with another. And so couples that come into this work, I work with singles and couples, couples that have been married for decades. But even if they've been married for decades, we've got to start with what's happening in the two individuals in that relationship. What most relationship work does is try to solve the relationship issues at the level of the relationship. But it's what's happening within the two people that is determining what's happening between the two people.
Yeah.
So I build this relationship with self where I know my needs, my wants, my desires, my yeses, my nos, my turn-ons, my turn-offs. I feel secure enough to let you see my strength and my weakness. And when I let you see that, then I'm actually, and I know that I'm going to be okay, even in my vulnerability. Then I can trust love. Because as long as I'm not being myself, I'm always going to question the love.
Mm.
So I can trust love, and I have the security to go into the unknown of the conflicts, of the possibilities, and trust in a much deeper way that then leads to the breathtaking. So the authenticity leads to the intimacy, leads to the ecstasy. And that's what I want most for every single person on this journey. A life that we didn't know it could be that good. It's breathtaking.
It is.
I want that.
I know. I love hearing you talk about, your work around intimacy and connection. Could you just talk a little bit about like what you're seeing? What is making it? I have some ideas listening to you and realizing like, oh, my 31 years of marriage and all that. Like I can see why people need to work with you because life happens, right? But like what do you see is making it so difficult for people to be deeply connected to themselves and each other?
Yes. So we live in a society that does not reward authenticity. We are like, that's the beginning of it, where like we try to conform to what our caregivers want us to be. We learn, be good, do this, if you do that. And then we have experiences that hurt. And because nobody's helping us navigate those hurt experiences, we take on the strategies to try to prevent those hurts from happening again. And every one of those strategies shuts us down more and more. I often have, it's not in front of me right now, but a acrylic diamond. And that life happens and we're covering up this diamond that is who we are. It is our authentic self. And so the Margaret Paul first, I think she's the first one that talked about this, but the number one destroyer of intimate relationships, she was a 40-year marriage therapist. The number one destroyer of intimate relationships is self-abandonment. It is all the things that we do thinking we're going to keep love, thinking we're going to be that good partner. So not being authentic. But now the other one that shows up is if I do what you need in a relationship, then I'm being loving. So if I prioritize your needs over my needs, If I set myself aside, and this is exacerbated in female beings, and I'll use female here because of the mothering aspect, we
Mm.
actually need to be able to set self aside to be mother. But that's in certain circumstances. It is not a way of life. That becomes the self abandonment and the resentment that accompanies self abandonment. So then I'll bring a third thing in, and that it would be that we don't understand how to do conflict in a sacred and conscious way. And talk long-term relationships, if we don't know how to deal with conflict, and most people don't, it will go under the rug and under the rug and under the rug until one partner's standing on this side of the rug and it's grown so high with stuff underneath it that we're kind of looking over the top of that rug going, not tonight, honey. And, I don't even know if I'm in love anymore.
Mm.
But it's because we weren't ourselves. We didn't know how to deal with the conflict, and we over prioritized the partner.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Immediately I would say, especially with that second piece, I was immediately went to love languages,
Mhm.
right? And we've all learned, if you know anything about love
Yep.
languages, the thing is you learn your partner's love language and you show up for their love language and hope to God that they show up for yours, right? And I think about that all the time because for me, it's acts of service. I mean, I'm not a huge like deep believer in all of this, but when I look at the list, that's my
Yeah.
top is
Yeah.
acts of service. So to me, when I'm doing the things around the house, I'm like, look at me loving you. I'm doing all the laundry.
Right.
Now my husband is very nice and thankful and blah blah blah, but it's because I think his is probably more words of affirmation
Mhm.
and that's not for me. So it feels inauthentic for
Yes.
me to just be like la 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 and you're the best. I feel all those things, but it doesn't feel authentic to me. So that is such a fascinating, it's the opposite of what is sort of societally accepted.
Yes. And there's an interesting dynamic with the love languages in that, because interestingly enough, you said, I feel it all,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't feel authentic. And what I didn't hear you say, but what I put into that sentence was to express it,
Correct. Yes.
because there's a projection here, but usually expressing things like that is really vulnerable.
Mm.
Mm.
And we've been conditioned to resist vulnerability.
Yeah.
And yet vulnerability is actually the heart of intimacy.
Hmm.
Mm.
It is the heart of true intimacy.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes total sense.
Yeah. Dang.
I mean, I know Carrie and I are both just like, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I know you and I, Carrie, are both thinking of people, right? We're thinking of
Yeah.
people who are divorced, on the verge of divorce, in the process of divorce. And it strikes me that, especially from the woman's perspective, right? And the whole idea of we get to a certain age where we've lost the desire to take care of people because the estrogen's gone and blah, all
Yep.
the hormones, right? And so all of a sudden you are aware of what isn't there anymore. And it might feel too late to recapture that.
Mm.
Yeah. And especially I was thinking about just as a caregiver of, an adult
Mm-hmm.
child with disabilities. And, we have to really be mindful of our own time, but for ourselves, how to free each other up, but then also really have to fight for some connection with each other. And we're married. A lot of people don't stay married in those situations,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
so I just keep thinking like how realistic. Like, I could imagine quite a few people listening to you going, must be nice. Must be
Mhm.
nice to get
Mm.
to that place, right?
Yeah.
Because they're in such a
Yep.
um
Deficit.
well, they're in
Yeah.
a deficit. They're in such and we always say as coaches, whatever you think, you'll find proof of, right? So if you
Right.
think it's
Absolutely.
possible for you, you'll find proof of it. But the opposite is also true. And I've been in both. Like, Lisa and I were just
Yeah.
having a conversation before you came on about that. It's like we know those tools and that expansion's possible. That life can really really color your lens. So I just keep thinking about that. Like there's like just about anyone
Yes.
could use some time with you.
Yes.
Because of this authenticity piece, it
Yeah.
is in the self piece. Like it's not
Yeah.
selfish. When we self abandon, we are at our worst. That's not when we go so far that we have self-abandoned and self-abandoned, and that's when we react, that's when we get resentful, that's when our hearts start to close. And so for all of us to come back, and thank you, Kari, for really naming this. Can sound like, yeah, must be great for you. And
Mhm.
this is a journey that I'm not telling anybody that you just flip a switch on this and it's here. And those that are feeling like this is impossible, and I hear that, like single mom and got kids, and I got aging parents, and I've got,
Mm.
professional, and I've got this, and I got to take care of the house. And where am I going to be feminine? Where am I going to? Nobody's showing up for me.
Right.
Right.
And as long as we stay true to that, so be it, as you said. If we can start to crack the door on one moment that feels different, we can build on it. It is a baby step after baby step, and sometimes it is baby, baby, baby steps. But if we can move that, I have known women to change entire organizations because they did their own inner work. They started
Mm.
realizing, ooh, this is how it's coming up in this moment, so I'll name it. They realize that they don't have to be the martyr.
Mm.
And that it is okay. There are so many women, and this was mine, that having needs is weak and pathetic.
Yeah.
Having needs is absolutely human truth. And we get so conditioned that and that it is wrong, weak, shameful to say, I need help.
Yeah.
I need help.
Mm.
And I'm drowning. I'm angry. I'm resentful. I'm like, name all of those things. And that's actually the place that we start because we have to hold that, but then we have to crack the door. Otherwise, nothing changes,
Mm.
Mm.
but we can crack the door. And that Tony Robbins is the first person I saw to do this. But if this is our path and we shift, if I come back here and just to show it, if we just shift this like 5 degrees
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
time, that is a significantly different trajectory in our lives. So all we got to do is take a baby, baby, baby step, and our life will begin to be different.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're exactly right. We talk about this again as coaches as well. Like what one thing, what would happen if you were different 1% every week?
Yes,
It'd be
yes,
52% different by the end of the year,
yes, yes,
and yet that's hard when you're in the thick of it. It's hard to
totally.
even comprehend what that would look like, you
Absolutely.
know? Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's where a little bit of empathy and compassion of like, yep, yep, absolutely. You're right. You're not wrong. We've got to embrace those fears. And then once they're embraced, like, oh, maybe there is space. Maybe
What are
there.
some of the signs that a woman has become disconnected from
Mhm.
herself without even realizing it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
everything you're saying is not unfamiliar, right? Self-abandonment, but how do you know how would a woman know if she is thinking, am I self-abandoning? Like, what are some of the signs?
Yeah. So, first one that pops up is resentment.
Yeah.
If we feel resentment at all, it is guaranteed there is self abandonment in the background. If we feel last on the priority list, or wouldn't it be great if
Mm,
kind of sentiment around our own enjoyment or pleasure, if we are, I'll use this, and regardless of where we are in our hormonal cycles, but if we feel dry, if we've lost some of that juice, that
mm,
aliveness, that because the feminine is also sensuality. and sensuality is yummy and it's juicy. And we may not be able to get there all the time, but it could be crazy. And I pick up the strawberry and I've got the capacity in the moment to slow down and experience that strawberry sensually. Take its smell in, see its redness, feel its juice if we take that bite of it, and then we savor it. But we have to have the capacity to do that. Like it's, definitely when it's go, 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 get shit done,
Yeah.
we're not going to savor that strawberry. But savoring that strawberry when we are available can give us all kinds of fuel and feeding of the feminine being. And that made me think of one more thing on how does a woman know? If it is difficult for her to ask for help or receive help,
Mm.
that is another indicator that she's not connected to herself.
You just jumped ahead to my next question, which was why do so many women find it easier to give than receive? And I feel like you've also covered this. I feel like Lisa and I come up across this a lot, especially with women our generation.
Yeah. So the masculine is the generous energy. It is the output energy.
Mm.
It's the contributory energy. So it's also, so I watched both of your reactions in masculine feminine polarity relationships, romantic relationships. One of the things that's hard for the masculine is they want to contribute. But a feminine being who goes, no, no, I got it. I got it. I don't need anything. I got it. I'll plan it. I'll do it. I'll do it. And then she's resentful because he's not showing up. But he's also less and less drawn because there's nowhere for him to offer his masculine contribution. And so where we've been, it's the women can have a double whammy here because innately the mother aspect needs to be able to self-sacrifice or our children would not survive. That's true. But having that in right conscious relationship, not using that aspect of being a woman or being feminine to try to prove we're worthy of love. So we give, trying to get love that we never end up feeling because we're trying to give to get it. And really we have to feel it to receive it. So that's the condition or the innate, I'll say it this way, it's the innate aspect of being a woman to give in that way. But then we get into our world that idolizes masculine energy and performance and productivity and shames rest and play. And now we've got do, go, 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 make things happen, get shit done. And that's survival. And then take trauma and put it on top of that. So anybody that's experienced trauma and has gone into that protection mode, it's really hard to go back to the vulnerability of the feminine. And receiving is vulnerable.
That's
Receiving is
true.
vulnerable. And so I could talk about this stuff
I mean,
first.
it's I don't know how you're feeling, Kari, but I don't know if it's because of your eloquence, but I just find, and I feel tears.
Mm.
And I think I feel tears because it feels, I know you just said baby steps, but it feels, I want to use the word insurmountable. I know that's not true.
Yeah,
But when you think about who we are, as you said, the mother aspect, whether you have children or not, you still
absolutely.
have that mother aspect, right?
Yes.
Yep.
So when you think of that, I feel like we're damned if we do, damned if we don't. And so it goes back again to vulnerability, which I don't think of myself as an invulnerable person. I feel like I'm pretty wide open, but I hear what you're saying, right? And so it feels like there's just like this abundance of vulnerability you need to have, but we're not only are we not conditioned to that way, we're also not born that way. Like it just
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we are born that way. Like, we can't express our needs. We have to cry. We have to, like, I actually think we are born quite vulnerable and quite open, and it's life that shut
Okay.
that it
Yeah,
Okay.
because think about babies crying,
yeah,
right?
True,
And
true,
like,
yeah,
true.
yeah,
I guess
yes,
I was thinking we're born with that innate mother, right?
yes,
That's what I
yes,
was thinking
okay,
of. But
got it.
but no, I hear what you're saying. You're right. We are conditioned out of being vulnerable. You're right.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And so I hear you, Lisa. And there are some days that I feel like, how the hell do we do this?
Right. That's what
Because
I'm
yeah,
thinking.
honestly, this is about what's happening individually in women.
Yeah.
This same aspect that we're talking about is also why there is the male loneliness epidemic right now.
Yeah.
Because and it was I think it was Newsom that said publicly they'd had some tragedy in their life, and that people would come to him and say, how's your wife? How's your wife?
mm,
How's she doing? How's she handling it? He said it was so rare for anyone to ask me how I was doing.
Wow.
So
Huh.
this resistance to our feeling nature, our vulnerable nature, our tenderness, our empathetic nature is so harmful to women. It is so harmful to men,
Yeah.
so harmful to families, relationships.
yeah.
And I actually honestly believe it is what is destroying our world right now. It
I,
is the
I just have to.
inability to feel.
I don't disagree with that. I think that that is incredibly important. I also want to say part of the male loneliness epidemic is that women are evolving and some men are really, really not. In fact, going backwards in some really archaic tropes right now around like maybe women shouldn't vote, maybe women should be at home, maybe like so.
Yes,
So
yes.
there's both. It's not just that no one's free. People are forgetting to ask men about their feelings.
I hear that. Thank you, Kari. Like this is where it gets really like, okay, let's hold it all. So yes,
Yeah.
there's a backlash. There's a backlash that has happened with men,
Mm.
and very unconsciously, in my opinion. I believe that part of that rising of the unconscious masculine, there's a shutdown in those beings. This is my experience. There is an inability to access their hearts.
Hmm.
There is an inability to be able to put themselves in someone else's shoes. I think our leadership, much of it male, can't put themselves in other people's shoes. And if we can't put ourselves in other people's shoes, we can't feel the impact of our decisions. So the
Mm.
absence of femininity, even in our organizations, our corporate structure that has become so much about profitability, I totally disagree with that. But if I look at why, there is this fear of getting softer. There
Hmm.
is this fear. And that when we're scared, when we feel shut down, we will go. Many of us, we either there's a get big, get loud, I'm going to prove that I'm the stronger, or I completely withdraw. Neither one of those is going to serve us. So I totally agree. There is an unconscious expression of masculine that has gotten bigger and more predominant in the world. But if I fight that with masculine energy and I don't see the lack of femininity in it, I can't begin to shift it.
Yeah, it's fascinating because I'm thinking of Lisa's son and my three boys, and my oldest says something. Lisa's son just got engaged, which is he's been in a long, wonderfully like
Uh,
beautiful relationship. My oldest is in a relationship. He's like this whole male loneliness epidemic. He's like, my friends are all in relationships. Like, so I don't know that it's like as prominent as people say. And I said, well, I mean, you're all dating really powerful women, so maybe there is something. I'm listening to what you're saying, like there is some beautiful feminine energy among these boys that aren't threatened by powerful, successful women. I don't
Right.
know.
They can feel, they can
I
say
don't
they're
know if I'm
hurt.
articulating it correctly, but maybe
No,
it's our
you're
generation that's more messed up.
well, I do find that the younger generations can have this conversation in a much deeper way. I also find that the younger generations bring some of the greatest resistance to the masculine feminine conversation because
Mm.
they want everybody gets their own expression, which is true. This is just a dimension of that expression, not a prescription for that expression. But I
That's
think that it's both. I think
yeah.
I think there is that shutdown and the loneliness aspect that many of us, and I've done this, if the masculine being in my life gets too soft, he doesn't feel in control. He doesn't feel in charge of himself. If he collapses in too much energy, my body goes, shit, am I still safe?
Mm.
And so I think there's an invitation for those of us that are more feminine to create safer spaces and work with our own fears. And this is like I couldn't just we try to do this in a weekend. We can't do it in a weekend. I don't even think we could do it in a week. And we haven't tried a week yet.
Mm.
But my guess is after a week, I'd go, we need a month to really pull the nuances of this completely apart. Because
Sure.
how they're showing up how the masculine shows up has a total influence on how the feminine it feels safe enough to let her vulnerability out. But
Yeah.
but then with mm, the other side of the fence is when we have felt like we're losing our place, we'll fight for it. And that's been true across the board, men, women. And while I disagree completely with some of the more expressive masculine um, consciousness these days, I want to meet it with love. I want to meet it with love. And
Yeah.
it may take me a while to step into those places, but I got the privilege of hearing a man speak who he was a chaplain and what was the rest of his background? I don't remember the rest of it, but he would walk into spaces that we might call the manosphere.
Mm.
And, but his work was compassionate warrior.
Hmm.
And how did he walk into those spaces? And he said, I have to not take it personally.
Mm.
Because if I take it personally, then I can't show up to even remotely be the possibility of change.
Mm.
And I think that's important for all of us. And it's hard. It's freaking hard. And it pushes our buttons. And I can tell you there are times when mine have been so pushed.
Yeah.
And then I go, what's happening here so that I can come back here and be more whole to keep having this conversation.
Yeah.
I want to, before we move into our sort of final bit, I'm curious, after all of these years doing this work, what do you know now that you wish? Oh, I
Mm.
was going to ask every woman knew because that's the majority of our
Yeah.
of our audience, but I actually think after listening to this, what do you wish every human knew?
Hmm.
And, or is it different between what we wish
No,
every man or
no,
every? Okay,
no. My answer is the same.
okay,
And it is the power of self-love.
okay.
It's really because the judgments that we have against ourselves, the expectations of who we're supposed to be, who men think they're supposed to be, who women think they're supposed to be, who any person thinks they have to become to be worthy, to be loved, to be enough. We've all got different flavors of the lens that we hold on that. But our enoughness, our deservability, our lovability, our wholeness, our perfection, even though we're flawed, that if we knew we were okay in the good, the bad, and the ugly, we wouldn't fight in the ways that we fight. We wouldn't defend in the ways that we defend. We would have the capacity to be all of who we are. Talk about feminine leadership, talk about leadership in general. The greatest gift we can give the world is who we are at our souls. That is what we fall in love with. That is what we are moved by in leadership. Not the perfection of it, but the truth of it. And the only way we can be the greatest leader or the greatest lover is to be who we are. And that is a path to embrace our brilliance, which some of us think that's too big, and our flaws, our imperfections that some of us think we have to hide. And if we didn't have to hide and we could be all that we are, the world would be a different place.
So, what's a baby step that somebody could take right now?
A baby step is to consider, like, and it's really a consideration that maybe I haven't been true to myself.
Hmm.
And then if I see that maybe I haven't really honored and expressed the true me, then what's the one step that I can take to not move towards the true me? That's one of the mistakes people make. Not to move towards the feminine, not to move towards self-love, but to look at the barriers that we built against it. And then what's one potential resistance or barrier I can begin to pull away so that I come home, not try to keep projecting something out there.
Mm. Beautiful.
Well, I mean, I feel like we could go in so many directions here. Because it's so interesting because this is like you keep saying safety, and I keep thinking, yes, there actually has to be physical safety for there to be emotional safety, right? And I've been so focused on that dynamic that this is like a real high level invitation to like when there is physical safety, the responsibility we both have for emotional safety is huge.
Yes.
That's a lot to think about.
Yeah. Like there's something that I talk about as emotional foreplay that is a corollary to physical foreplay because they're both creating an opening and a relaxing and a safety to go into the deepest places of connection and intimacy and pleasure and union.
Nice.
Mm. Well, we always ask our guests to share a meaningful song. You chose When Grace Walks In by Phillips, Craig, and Dean. I am unfamiliar with that song, so tell us about that choice and what that song means to you.
Yeah, well, and it's one that came to me, and I remember when I answered that question, the it was one of those that it was just shared with me sometime earlier this year, and it's it's a Christian genre, which is not something that I traditionally listen to on a regular basis, but grace is the
Mm.
ultimate expression of the feminine.
Mm.
If we talk about feminine presence, there's a grace about it. It's very present. It's not collapsed. Grace is not collapsed in any way. Grace is very present and radiant, and there's a power in grace. And so that title and the essence is both the grace that is us as the true feminine,
Nice.
and that if we're talking about self-love, there's some higher power, in my opinion. Again, I grew up Christian. I'm actually influenced by and integrate all of most of the world's traditions. But this idea that there is also something holding us.
Mm.
And I think that's really important. So the grace of the feminine being and the grace that can hold us when stuff is hard.
Mm.
Because if we feel like we are alone, it's really, really hard.
Yeah.
Wow. Um, Thank you so much, Joanna, for spending this time with us. It's nice to go deeper on, and this is really deep with us, and just sharing your wisdom and your story and your perspective. For anyone who's listening and people who want to follow up with you or learn more, where would you like them to find you?
The website ecstaticintimacy.com is the best place. There are hundreds of articles, and our events and resources are all there, ways to speak to me privately. But that's the best place, ecstaticintimacy.com.
Excellent. And we will get that up on in the show notes and so forth. And also, we do have a little bonus episode again from when we recorded with you back in March of 26. And we will actually be putting that out to our members. So you have to be a member on Patreon to get the extra bits and pieces here with Joanna. But this has been gorgeous. And I just appreciate I appreciate your softness. I know, I remember from us talking in March that, like, yeah, you had this real masculine energy as an engineer. And yet here you are, you've integrated that in and come in with such lovely feminineness, I guess, for lack of a better word. So I think, I mean, you're walking the walk, right? And it's a journey,
It's
right?
a journey.
It's a
Yeah,
journey. I
absolutely.
totally get that. But it's just, I have a few people in my life that I could just like sit and listen to them talk all day. And I sort of feel that about you. Like you just have this lovely voice and lilt and everything is it feels very warm and welcoming. I can imagine that people that work with you feel the almost warm hugness of you. So thank you for spending this time with us today. And thank all of you for joining us, all of our listeners spending this time. And I can't imagine how it wouldn't. If this conversation resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. And maybe even bookmark it for yourself to come back and listen to a couple of times. Thanks,
We'll be back
everyone.
soon with
Thank
another
you.
episode of The Things We Know.
Thanks, Joanna. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye.
Bye.